So this is a trigger warning. I'm about to sit here and read this lawsuit from Gabby Zuniga against Shannon Sharpe. There are so many triggering themes in this lawsuit. There is rape all in and throughout. There's dominance, there's all kind of violence, emotional abuse, there's all kind of themes. If that is too much, do not watch this video. It could definitely trigger a lot of emotions. So I'm just putting this out there. This lawsuit is a hard read and it's a hard listen. So just scroll away. You do not have to support this video because it is definitely some challenging themes in it. By now, everybody has seen this story of Shannon Sharpe being involved with this young woman who was barely like 1 year out of high school before he started screwing her. The whole situation of, is this legal? Is it illegal? Whatever, that's beside the point. Morally, that's where the whole judgment stuff comes in. And there is the question of, was it always consensual? So we know this story, and what I'm about to do is read the actual lawsuit, the civil lawsuit that she filed against him. I wasn't going to jump into the fray of this, but now I am, because I started reading the lawsuit, and the lawsuit is quite disturbing in a lot of the language. So I'm going to get into it. So here's the lawsuit, Jane Doe versus Shannon Sharpe, that was filed on April 20th. And I'm just going to sit here and read the majority of this. It says, plaintiff Jane Doe complains of defendant Shannon Sharpe and for cause of action would respectively show this honorable court the following. A woman can say yes to consensual sexual relations with a man 99 times, but when she says no, even once, that no means no. Defendant Shannon Sharpe, a man who is accustomed to getting what he wants, completely fails to understand this basic concept. After many months of manipulating and controlling plaintiff, a woman more than 30 years younger than he, and repeatedly threatening to brutally choke and violently slap her, Shannon refused to accept the answer no and raped plaintiff, despite her sobbing and repeated screams of no. Defendant Shannon Sharpe is a 56-year-old former NFL superstar. He claims to be one of the most successful sports media personalities in the country. Plaintiff is a young woman in her early 20s. In 2023, plaintiff was working out at a gym in LA when Sharpe approached her for the first time. Previously, Doe had noticed Sharpe watching her during her workouts. At this time, Doe was just 19 years old. At the time, she did not know who he was, only that he was another older man ogling her at the gym. Doe could tell Sharpe was much older than her. She found him physically intimidating. Eventually, he introduced himself. At his determined insistence, she gave him her number. Over the next couple of weeks, Sharpe insistently pursued plaintiff. He constantly approached her at the gym, attempted to contact her frequently with phone calls and text messages, asking to meet up. Unwilling to take no for an answer, eventually plaintiff gave in and agreed to meet with Sharpe outside the gym. However, before doing so, Sharpe demanded that Doe signed an NDA, something plaintiff found a bit concerning. She wondered why Sharpe was so insistent on her signing an NDA. She refused. Despite his repeated efforts to get her to sign, she refused again and again. Eventually, he dropped the issue and invited her to his house. What followed was the beginning of a rocky, consensual relationship that lasted nearly 2 years. The relationship was very unequal. Sharpe is more than 30 years older, is considerably wealthier, is physically much larger, and exponentially stronger. Shannon is famous and has power. And like I said before, none of these things, being particularly older, being wealthier, being stronger, is illegal, but it creates a power dynamic where the man, in this case, Shannon Sharpe, has much more power in a relationship, and so that makes her much more controllable. All right, let's continue. Plaintiff and Sharpe saw each other on his terms and on his schedule, as often as 4 times a week. Over time, plaintiff began to see Sharpe's true nature. She found him to be dishonest about his whereabouts. He would lie about seeing other women while insisting to her that she and he were exclusive. He often manipulated her, at times being sweet and loving to get what he wanted, and at other times being angry and aggressive to achieve his goals. She discovered over time Sharpe was extremely emotional and possessed an uncontrollable temper. He displayed the characteristics of a true narcissist. He wielded his power, his influence, and his celebrity to control plaintiff and to get exactly what he wanted, whenever he wanted it, all the while jealously guarding what he considered his for himself. By October 2024, Sharpe's behavior had grown progressively worse, beyond anything plaintiff had experienced with him before. At this point, he was insistent upon recording their sexual activities, sometimes without her knowledge. Sharpe was also sharing the videos with others without her permission or knowledge. Sharpe would repeatedly tell Doe that he wanted to do things to her that would make no other man want her. By this point, Sharpe was no longer able to credibly maintain that the relationship was exclusive. At this point, accidentally or purposely to advance his career, went live on Instagram while having sex with another woman. Sharpe flew into fits of anger when plaintiff noted his infidelity to their relationship or called him out on his extraneous activities. What had once been manipulation, control, and intimidation now became something far more dangerous and sinister. Sharpe even figured out how to get into Doe's apartment complex without her permission. Sharpe made it clear that what Doe wanted was of no moment, that Sharpe would get what he wanted when he wanted it. In October of 2024, Shannon Sharpe violently sexually assaulted and anally raped plaintiff 2 different times in Las Vegas, blatantly ignoring her request for him to stop. He did it again in January. Plaintiff left Nevada to temporarily escape defendant Shannon Sharpe. She now seeks justice through this action and other means. Plaintiff seeks compensatory and punitive damages in this matter in excess of $50 million. Plaintiff Jane Doe is an individual residing in Clark County. Defendant Shannon Sharpe is an individual residing in Clark County. He may be served at his residence, okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I'm going to skip all of this. I'm going to skip this part about him being a well-known superstar. Okay, he used to play in the NFL. Great. Let's continue. Okay, I'm skipping down. It's like, okay, right here, he used to play for the NFL. He has moved on. He's in sports broadcasting. He has a podcast. All right, let's keep it moving. Sharpe's legacy extends beyond the field in media, and in one glaring area, it is indeed good. Sharpe has a documented history of abusing and mistreating women. As an example, he is currently a defendant in a lawsuit before the Supreme Court of New York, facing claims from a woman of intentional infliction of emotional distress, among other allegations. Many of the factual allegations in the New York case are eerily similar to his actions toward plaintiff here. According to the New York lawsuit, Sharpe forcefully subdued the plaintiff in that case, forcing her to her knees and subjected her to non-consensual oral sex. Despite her repeated protests, when she resisted, he persisted. He would not take no for an answer. According to the New York lawsuit, the plaintiff therein feared for her safety, just as plaintiff fears for her safety now. The New York lawsuit further alleges that Sharpe escalated to non-consensual vaginal penetration, all while telling her that he would make it so no other man would want her. These words were apparently not a one-time thing. Plaintiff herein, too, has heard Sharpe say those exact same words to her. And in September 2024, Sharpe live-streamed himself on accident having sex with a woman. Upon information and belief, he did so on purpose to seek media exposure and to attract social media views and attention. To live stream himself, he would have to deliberately swipe right on Instagram to activate the live feed. Sharpe claims it was accidental. However, discreetly recording sex without his partner's knowledge is something he is known to do. He did so with the plaintiff herein. Plaintiff discovered that Sharpe had been secretly recording their sexual encounters without her consent. When she confronted him, he summarily dismissed her concerns, claiming the videos were for his own personal use. That, too, was a lie. Upon information and belief, Sharpe on multiple occasions shared the recordings with his friends and associates. At one point, he even forced plaintiff to have sex with him while FaceTiming one of his childhood friends named Bucket. Whenever plaintiff would get up the courage to object to Sharpe's outrageous conduct, which was not often, he would aggressively and angrily put her back in her place. Sharpe isn't just a sports icon, he's something far worse. He is a flawed, narcissistic individual who has spent time using his fame, power, and influence to manipulate, control, subjugate, and violate women. With this suit, plaintiff intends to put an end to this egregious conduct. So this top part is just talking about how they met up at the gym, how he was trying to challenge her to a challenge to lean out, basically how he got his hooks in. So I'm going to skip some of this and get to this part. Eventually, plaintiff gave in, but before she could meet him outside of the gym, Sharpe made another demand. She had to sign an NDA. He refused to explain why and would not let her see the copy of the proposed agreement. He simply insisted she sign one. Plaintiff refused. After multiple attempts, when he realized she would not cooperate, he finally dropped the issue. All right. Revealed from the start, the violent, aggressive, controlling nature of Shannon Sharpe. The first night plaintiff went to Sharpe's house, the experience was unlike anything she has dealt with before. Disturbing, unsettling, and given his subsequent conduct, very illuminating. When plaintiff arrived at his house, Sharpe opened the door to his Beverly Glen mansion without a word. No greeting, no acknowledgement, no small talk. Without so much as looking at plaintiff, he simply turned away from her after opening the door and walked upstairs. Plaintiff hesitated but followed as she did not know what else to do or where else to go. When she reached the bedroom, Sharpe pointed to the bed before disappearing into the bathroom and shutting the door behind him. He still had not said a word. Plaintiff sat on the bed waiting, unsure of what to expect or if she should leave. Roughly 5 minutes later, he finally emerged, but still he said nothing. Instead, he turned off all the lights and laid down in his bed. This part gets uncomfortable. Plaintiff, uncomfortable and unsure of what to do, lay down as well. For roughly 10 minutes, there was nothing but silence. Then, without warning, Sharpe placed his hands on plaintiff's neck from behind, pressed his erect penis around against her body, and said his first words of the night. "I knew from the first time I saw you that I was going to F you." Doe and Sharpe then engaged in oral sex. As they did so, Doe at some point realized Sharpe was using his phone. He was apparently recording her. Plaintiff could see that he was trying to be discreet, but it was obvious what he was doing. She said nothing, scared to confront him for what he might do or say. When it ended, he rolled over and went to sleep. At some point later during the night, Sharpe woke up, grabbed plaintiff by her vagina, and began having sex with her. The next morning, Sharpe woke up roughly at 4 a.m. to shoot a media segment for sports television. He woke plaintiff as well and told her she needed to leave, but he informed her that she had to be back by 9 p.m. exactly. The following night, plaintiff arrived at Sharpe's house approximately at 9:05 p.m., just 5 minutes past the time he demanded. The moment he opened the door, plaintiff experienced his rage for the first time. Sharpe immediately launched into a verbal assault. He screamed at plaintiff, berating her for what felt like hours. He accused her of disrespecting him, wasting his time, and warned that if she wanted to be with the Shannon Sharpe, she would have to learn obedience. Plaintiff was terrified and feared for her physical safety. Still enraged, Sharpe turned off the lights, grabbed her by the neck just like the night before, began having sexual intercourse with her. This cycle of control, fear, and submission became routine, yelling at her, controlling her, forcibly grabbing her by the neck when he got upset, saying he was going to kill her, and asserting dominance. Asserting dominance became the norm. Over the next year and a half, plaintiff saw Sharpe at his house as often as 4 times a week. Sharpe continued to treat her like an object. He continued to control her, not just physically, but emotionally and psychologically. He demanded complete control over her time and body, expecting her to be at his house on his schedule at his command, whenever he called. The verbal abuse never stopped. He would berate and degrade plaintiff just as he had from the beginning. One time specifically, he was yelling at her while there was a firearm visible in his room. Terrified for her safety, plaintiff tried sharing her location with friends from her iPhone, just in case, but Sharpe saw her doing this. The moment he realized what she was doing, he grabbed her by the neck and told her, "If you ever do that again, I will effing kill you." Summer of 2024, Sharpe's control turns abusive. The relationship becomes fearful and non-consensual. Sharpe's aggression and rage continued to escalate to the point that plaintiff's friends began to fear for her safety. For example, when plaintiff was with her friends, they could hear Sharpe yelling at her over the phone and would ask her if she was safe and if she was okay. In the summer of 2024, plaintiff and Sharpe each moved to Las Vegas for their own reasons. Sharpe liked to say that plaintiff followed him to Vegas, but that too was a lie. Once in Vegas, Sharpe again insisted plaintiff signed an NDA. She refused again, he persisted, but after enough resistance, he let it go and continued seeing her multiple times a week. His behavior did not change. He remained erratic, controlling, and verbally abusive, all while telling plaintiff that he was committed to a sexually exclusive relationship with her. Then, in September 2024, Sharpe humiliated plaintiff. He live-streamed himself having sex with another woman on Instagram for over 1.1 million followers to see. Later, he made jest of the incident on his podcast, Club Shay Shay, and show Nightcap. But for plaintiff, it was anything but funny. He had repeatedly assured they were in an exclusive relationship, albeit unhealthy and abusive. This was a lie that not only hurt her emotionally, it made her fear for her sexual health and the risk of sexually transmitted disease. At that point, plaintiff began to pull away from Sharpe. She stopped answering his phone calls and stopped telling him where she was when he would demand to know. Plaintiff's feeble attempts at freedom and independence further upset Sharpe. He began flooding her phone with calls, demanding to know where she was. He called relentlessly, multiple times per hour. The harassment became so unbearable. Plaintiff frequently began leaving Nevada, determined to cut off communication, resist his efforts to control her, and attempt to reclaim some control of her life. It took courage for plaintiff to make this effort. She remained terrified even though she was thousands of miles away. Sharpe simply would not accept independence or freedom from plaintiff. In October 2024, just after plaintiff returned from Europe, Sharpe's behavior became more angry, aggressive, and now violent. October 2024, Sharpe sexually assaults and rapes plaintiff and threatens, "I'm going to make it so no man will want you again." On October 6, 2024, plaintiff was working out in the Nevada gym, following her usual routine. As she worked out, she saw Sharpe aggressively approaching her. She could tell by his look and the way he moved quickly towards her that he was furious for having been ignored. As soon as he got close, he told her, "Sit the F down or I'm going to kill you." Plaintiff refused. "I don't want to talk to you. You cheated on me." His response was dismissive and controlling as usual. "You don't have a choice." Sharpe demanded that they talk in private. Again, plaintiff told him no. She made him clear that she did not want to talk to him, be alone with him, or want him coming to her home. But Sharpe didn't care. He never took no for an answer. Sharpe forced plaintiff under threat to get into his car and go to his house. Once Sharpe was inside her apartment, go to her house. Once Sharpe was inside her apartment, plaintiff tried to keep the conversation in the living room, but Sharpe refused. He demanded they go to the bedroom. She said no, he didn't listen, nor did he care. Once in the bedroom, Sharpe grabbed her from behind and forcibly positioned her to perform oral sex. He held her in place and then forced her to begin performing. He became even angrier and said, "You've disrespected me so much. I'm going to punish this a-hole. I'm going to make it so no man will want you again." Plaintiff at this point was crying and sobbing. Tears streamed down her face as Sharpe repositioned her and took her from behind and inserted his penis into her anus as he forcibly anally raped her. He said, "Turn around and look at me." Sharpe grabbed her head, forcing her to look at him as she sobbed. He said, "At this point, look at this. Look at my arm. I've got chills. That's how good this is." Shannon Sharpe forced himself on the plaintiff and raped her, despite her sobbing in agony as it happened. He told her in the moment as she was crying that the experience was so good it was giving him chills. Sharpe's behavior demonstrates that he believed plaintiff to be his personal property, possessed and owned by him. He also believed that laws did not apply to him, that he could take what he wanted, and that no one could or would stop him. He was and is wrong. January 2025, Sharpe sexually assaults and rapes plaintiff, ignoring her screams and refusing to wear a condom. On January 2nd, 2025, Sharpe told plaintiff he wanted to see her. Sharpe persisted and reminded plaintiff that he had a combined Christmas and birthday gift to give her, as he previously promised her a gift. She ultimately allowed him to come over to her apartment. She regrets that decision. Once inside her apartment, Sharpe began undressing. Plaintiff firmly stated multiple times that they would not have sex without protection, demanding that he wear a condom. She knew that in the past he refused to ever use condoms, but believed that her demand would stop him from having sex with her. But although he refused to use a condom, he still insisted on sex. She tried to resist him. She screamed. She had already expressed concerns for her safety, knowing that he had been involved with other women, risking the risk of transmitting a disease. The more she begged, Sharpe became more aggressive and made it clear that he would not wear a condom and he was going to have his way with her. Sharpe grabbed her, pulling her around and positioning her to perform oral sex, which lasted roughly 2 minutes. Then Sharpe repositioned her and roughly forced himself inside her. Plaintiff never stopped demanding he stop or that he put on a condom. Sharpe ignored her. As soon as he penetrated her, plaintiff screamed and sobbed. Her cries for help did nothing to stop Sharpe. The assault lasted roughly 10 minutes, ending only when Sharpe ejaculated inside her. Plaintiff cried and begged repeatedly for him to stop. Plaintiff left Nevada after the assault. Plaintiff brings these causes of action in this honorable court to recover damages as outlined below. It is imperative that Shannon Sharpe and those like him are held accountable for their actions to prevent them from engaging in further sexual assault and sodomy and harming future victims. And that's basically the gist of the claims. I really do hope that this goes to court so both sides can tell their sides of the story. I am going to do some follow-up videos. This video has already gotten to be very long, but I did want to talk about the lawsuit in particular. From here, we can go on to discuss what everybody else is talking about and all of the things surrounding this. I wasn't planning on doing this story, but after I sat down and really started reading the lawsuit, it became apparent that I needed to at least put it out there what was being said, because I know some of the social media discourse. She's an OF model. She's the one pursuing him. She's just trying to bring a black man down. All of that is going around the social media discourse. But this is much bigger than that. And if this allegation is true, if the other lawsuits are true, if the other mutterings of what has gone on with Shannon Sharpe and his previous relationships are true, then this man needs to be held accountable for his actions. All right, join the conversation. Let me know what you think. There will be follow-up videos to this story.